with Growth Acceleration Partners, leading a discussion. So a lot of conversations over the last 7 months have been around how to survive with COVID. And Joyce put together a wonderful panel today and a great discussion around how to actually thrive and grow your business and succeed during COVID. So I am pleased to pass everything over to Joyce, who has been like my dream panelist and dream moderator since I became CEO, and cannot wait to learn a lot from her and her group today. Joyce?
Amber, thank you so much. So as Amber said, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Growth Acceleration Partners, and really, really pleased to be with you today. And Amber, thank you and the Austin Technology Council for giving Austin tech companies really the space that we need to share innovative ideas. So in fact, we all can thrive during this period. So thank you for that. As Amber mentioned, like we've all been, since, about March 10th, we've all been trying to find ways to survive, but we hopefully at this point, everyone has kind of figured out how to move past that really into a mode of how to thrive, not only for 2020, but for 2021 and beyond. And thriving in a way that includes not just your company, but your customers and your employees and the communities that we all live in, because I am so proud to be an Austinite. So throughout today's session, this time is for you, right? It's not for me or for Travis or for Lawrence, it's for you. So I invite you to ask any questions that you want in the chat window. And as we get towards the end of the session, we will try and take and answer as many of those as we can get to. So let's make this a conversation. So a little bit about me and about Gap. I have been in the technology space for 35 years now. Yes, that is a long time. And I've enjoyed having the opportunity not only to be the founder of Gap, which I founded almost 14 years ago, but I was previously the CEO of a venture-backed security firm. And before that, an executive at a multi-billion-dollar public firm called BMC Software. So I've had a lot of fun in the technology industry. I've failed at a lot of things and I succeeded at a lot of things, and hopefully I've learned from both. So at Growth Acceleration Partners, we are experts in software and data engineering. We really find ways to help our customers leverage technology to improve their business outcomes. And that includes things like our transformation services offerings, where we help customers with technology modernization, with automation and continuous integration and continuous delivery, with data science and data analytics and cloud migration. So we have more today, and growing very rapidly. We have more than 300 full-time engineers located in Costa Rica, in Colombia, and in the United States. So that's a little bit about us. Now, the most important part, let me get to introducing our panelists. These guys are both thought leaders and really sought after presenters, so I feel very fortunate that they agreed to spend this time with us today. And we ask each of them to participate, yes, because they're thought leaders, right? They're really just fun guys to be with, but mostly because they're working in companies whose innovations are changing the way that we interact with the world, right? Especially the way that we interact with healthcare and the way that we interact with the big brands that we have all absolutely come to rely on during this pandemic. And their companies were on these paths long before the pandemic, but 2020 have put their plans into hyperdrive. The other thing I'm going to tell you about Travis and Lawrence is they are values-based leaders, believing that it is their responsibility to watch out for not just the company, but the employees and the communities. They believe those are all part of the equation of success for the companies they work in. So I think that we can learn a great deal from these two. So let me tell you specifically about them. Travis Fawcett. Travis, wave. Hi, Travis. Travis is a VP of engineering at Arista MD. Arista MD provides e-consult platform, a technology platform that empowers the way physicians provide access to specialty care. It reduces cost of care overall. It improves patient outcomes and provides a much higher level of provider satisfaction. And that sounds like something we really need this year. Travis himself has been managing and architecting software engineering projects for the last 20 years across a variety of industries like telecommunications and marketing and biotech, life sciences, and healthcare. And in 2019, Travis was awarded the top tech executive in San Diego for startups. So way to go, Travis. I didn't know that until yesterday.
Thanks.
It was awesome. Lawrence Su is the VP of Data Analytics at Axiom. Many of you may not know Axiom personally, but I promise you interact with their insights and solutions every single day, because Axiom provides data-driven solutions that enable the world's biggest brands to better understand their customers and create better experiences for all of us. And Lawrence himself is in charge of delivering insights and advanced analytics and data-driven strategies to make these things happen. They focus on bringing life to data-driven customer journeys and providing insightful customer portraits on what really we care about kind of as consumers. And they do that through robust analytics and knowledge sharing. The thing I love about Lawrence is he knows how to tell a story that comes from real data insights. And in today's world, where physical access to the customer has been reduced or eliminated, the need for data analytics to gain customer insights has never been more important. So Lawrence, please wave, say hi. And,
Thank you so much, Joyce.
So let's get started. The pandemic has raged on for 7 full months, feels like 7 years. And we are finding, I think many of you are finding we did a lot right in the beginning, but the strategies that were required at the beginning may not be enough as we continue to deal with a pandemic well into next year. So let's talk about first on the employee side, what is it, and I'm gonna start with Travis and Lawrence and we'll come back to Gap in a minute, but what tactics did your company, Travis, we'll start with you, did your company employ related to employee retention and well-being kind of throughout the various times of the pandemic? Beginning kind of where we are now and kind of looking forward. And did you learn anything as a result of these actions that highlighted shortcomings from previous methods that you figured out how to overcome?
Yeah, that's a great question. Of course, we all got into it. We were all quarantined at home, and I think there was a big sense of that lack of face-to-face, and everybody kind of missed it. And one of the things we did early on is we created a channel in Slack that was like COVID updates. And the CEO would constantly say, hey, hope everyone's doing well. Here's what's happening right now. Here's what San Diego's doing, just to let you know. Those have slowed down a little bit because we've all gotten kind of used to where things are. But that was helpful. We also created a stay program, which was just another channel in Slack where during the weekends or whenever you needed to or could, you would post pictures of you doing baking or photos of your pets, exercising. The whole team would actually vote on that. And then a random gift would be sent to your home from Amazon, like a pair of socks or a recipe book, or in one case, a yodeling pickle. So fun things like that to keep everyone entertained and kind of connected, still that sense of connection. We did start actually doing happy hours, and we started with the entire company, 45 people on a happy hour. That is something we learned did not work. We had to break that down into much smaller happy hours. So right now, every Friday, you have a 2 o'clock happy hour with 6 people. And so we've gotten to know each other over and over through that. So I think moving forward, it is tough because as you continue to do the same thing over and over, people get bored and they say, oh, another happy hour, I'm going to miss this one. So I think trying to come up with new activities to keep the team engaged is going to be challenging and switching things up. And I think it's important that you do that and you keep kind of people engaged at that level. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm going to try to do something where we pair off into partners and we discover something new on Wikipedia, and then we can present that to the team. Just different things along those lines.
Fun. Lawrence, how about you at Axiom?
Sure. So my team, just as a little bit of backdrop, I lead a team of about 50 data analysts, and we've actually been a distributed workforce even pre-pandemic. So my team is scattered from the West Coast to the East Coast and all the states in between. So we've actually had a lot of policies in place to work and collaborate together from a distance basis, right? So we've done recognition programs, and as an analytics group sitting inside of a larger organization, some of the bigger programs that the company and the corporate enterprise has, it feels a little out of reach for a group of 50. So we implemented some things that are a little bit closer to our group. So we have a shout out program on Slack so that our team can cheer on our own individual efforts inside of our group. And that leads to two things. That leads to a monthly award that the leaders choose, and then that leads to a People Choice Award that the peers vote on for the people that were nominated in that month. And so it's a really nice way to be able to engage the team in a smaller setting inside of our teams, but provide that recognition and then also visibility to what other people are working on, right? Because when you get to this lack of an office, lack of the water cooler conversation, it's hard to know what people are working on in a distributed environment. And since we've always been working on that, it's a little bit out of sight, out of mind. So we were trying to find ways to bring that back into the mix. And for our happy hours, we've been doing that for 3 years now. We have 3 rules for the happy hours, only 3 rules. And we usually play games and things, but your mic has to be on. And I'll explain why in a minute. Your camera has to be on, and you're not allowed to talk about work. Those are the 3 rules for happy hour, right? And consistently, we have about 40 people out of our group participate. They'll do it from their car. They'll do it. Actually, before they would be doing it as they're heading out for their weekend. But the value of actually being able to keep the mics on, because we're so used to turning mics off for Zoom meetings, but the value of having the mics on is that you get to hear the laughter. You get to hear the cheering on. You get to hear the applause when we recognize somebody for something really great they've done. So it's really important to me to make sure that while we've been working at home, we recognize all the other things that are happening in people's lives. And you only get to know that by understanding and listening and learning more about the people that we work with. So that's what's been really a nice adaptation for something that we had before, but then we amplified it and took it a little bit further given the pandemic.
Terrific, guys. Those are great ideas. In fact, I may steal a few of them. Just on the gap side, we've done a lot of the same things that you talked about, so I won't hit those again. But in terms of talking, how do we really get, employees to thrive? From the first day that we knew the pandemic was really going to be a pandemic, we went out that day and we told all of our employees there are not going to be layoffs, right? We don't care how long it's going to last. We will do every single thing we have to do. Whatever it is, the executives will all take pay cuts, we'll borrow money, whatever we need, but we're in this together as one Gap family, and we're going to find a way to get through it together. What that did that we didn't plan on, right, for our employees, one, it gave them a great sense of security. And they all, I cannot tell you how many came to me and said, what else can we do? How can we help our customers more? We have some other ideas. How can we kind of help? And do we need to, we'll take more pay cuts, right, so that we can protect the jobs of all the Gapsters. Out of those ideas came the Gap Foundation, which is a separate, our own kind of internal nonprofit that employees can donate vacation hours and salary to, and Gap donates to as well. And then a committee of Gapsters, they allocate the money every month to Gapsters that are most in need. Families, we've had a lot of families, while Gapsters' jobs are protected, their spouses or other family members have lost their jobs. And we have, sadly, a number of families right now dealing with COVID, right? So how can we help them through this time? So the Gap Foundation, I think, was not something we had predicted kind of at the beginning, but has been a huge blessing for us kind of coming as we come out. And so I would say, for everyone, if you're looking for ways to really have your employees thrive in your companies, they need to have that sense of purpose, right? So they are doing something, not just to make the company better, but to help their fellow teammates and their communities be successful. Lawrence, you want to, oh, Jean Ann, go ahead.
I was just looking for my unmute.
Yes.
So I found it. So that's super cool. The allocation to the families in need, that's an employee group that does that?
It is, they decide. So there's a pool of money that's donated every month. People like, and some of the donations are literally like $10 a month, or they're going to donate 1 hour of their time or whatever. And then we have an employee committee that they develop their own criteria, and they decide how that money is going to be allocated to the families in need.
Super cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. Lawrence, did you have something else to add? Did I miss a comment?
Oh, no, not necessarily. I mean, I think but just to comment real quickly on what you were saying, you know, it's tough, right? Because as a business, you can't necessarily make promises on changes you might have to make, you know, if conditions change, right? But I think what is important is to reiterate to the associates and the employees, right, is that we're looking at every option to try to sustain and maintain our business as best as possible, right? And you know, there's certain things that I think are more difficult, but I also try to remind our teams as best we can that we should be very fortunate, right? There are plenty of other people in the world that have a lot more difficult challenges than we do, you know, even sitting in front of a computer screen for 12 hours, 10 hours, 8 hours a day, right? And so just to be mindful of that, I think, is an important part. And then the community outreach is absolutely something that is important. And some of the team on my side that have felt best about the situation at large are the ones that actually went out and reached out to help out the community in some small shape or form. So I do think that that's a really strong value to support.
Yeah, I think that's a great ad. Figuring out, I think that's one of the things that's been challenging in the pandemic is that a lot of companies, startups and big companies alike, have giving programs, right, where people go out as teams and do charitable activities, and, you know, figuring out what you can do safely and how to keep that part of your company's kind of values alive has taken more work for sure. There was a question on what mechanism, and I'm going to answer these in line as long as I think we can stay on track. What mechanism did you put in place to empower employees to share those innovative ideas? And we really, and was it easy or difficult to implement? In our organization, and I'll let Travis and Lawrence say, for our organization, it wasn't difficult. We just really had to encourage each of our project teams. They really partner with our customers on the solutions they have. So we basically asked them, all of them, to come up with, once the idea surfaced, hey, come up with a series of recommendations. And then, you know, within that team, decide if you think those are strong enough and compelling enough, then, you know, take them to the customers. And so we're an agile company. We believe in business agility kind of across the board. And so we allow each team to kind of decide what works for them and what doesn't. So it wasn't too hard for us to implement. Okay, let's go on to the next part. So we just talked about employees. Let's, oh, there's definitely someone at our house. Let's talk about our clients. So, yeah, let's talk about clients. So Travis and Lawrence, kind of back to you. What was the one thing that you did that was most effective to stabilize the client base? That's what, you know, as we were all kind of responding to the pandemic, what did you do to stabilize the client base? And then the second is, what has been your approach to secure new clients or new markets? And did you have any kind of pivots along the way? Okay, Lawrence, if you don't mind, we'll start with you this time.
Sure. So our customer base is actually very wide and very across every industry you can imagine. The interesting part is that, you know, I'll answer the first question. The one thing we did is we talked to our customers and we found out what matters to them right now. And and it's important to note my first comment, because if you look at a financial services institution, they're doing just fine right now, right? Now there's a bigger challenge that they're dealing with because nobody's spending the money, they're all saving the money, right? So they're trying to figure out how do they drive economic growth in other ways. But then you flip the coin, and one of our other customers is a retailer, right? And a grocery store. Well, they, at the early days of pandemic, were dealing with a whole different set of issues around their customers because of, effectively the run on supplies, right? So you couldn't get anything, and how do you effectively manage communications? So, and then travel and hospitality, right? Impacted significantly during this time period. And we have a lot of customers, big marquee brands that, their complete business basically went to zero because of the pandemic. So a lot of it really is about, one, Acxiom's very fortunate that we've got long-standing relationships with our customers. So there's a durability that comes with that type of business that we're in. However, what we've really kind of emphasized in learning and talking with our customers is most of them were thinking about what's next. They're thinking about how do they prepare for the new reality of the things after pandemic kind of gets under control, and after we start to open things back up again, right? It's just a matter of time. Obviously, it's taking a longer time, but the reality is that the world and how they engage and the ways they engage will be different. So plan for that as opposed to sitting around and waiting. So many of the initiatives that we're working on are actually 2021 initiatives. However, we're taking the time as things are a little bit quieter and a little bit slower, both with our customer and with our internal organizational focus, to think about those next things and to use that time wisely towards those efforts. And so that's where we've found the most success in terms of helping our clients build new solutions, adapt to kind of the new way of thinking, and then also leverage data, right? So we talk about data a little bit, and the COVID-19 data, there's a lot of data out there, but it's also overwhelming. And so what we've done is we've tried to make it consumable for our customers to understand what does their customer base look like pre-pandemic and what does it look like post-pandemic? Because every region of the country looks a little bit different based on what they're facing. Take something like the wildfires or the hurricanes or the flood. Every environment has a different aspect to it. So you've got to be able to leverage data and technology to draw those insights faster. But it all comes back to understanding each client, for each and every client, what matters most to them right now, and how can we help them get through that and move forward to a newer, more adaptable future.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. That it sounds like, right, you're really working to meet the clients where they are, right? What's their business status, and what do they need, and how you engage them in a conversation to really look forward. We know where we are. How do you look forward? Yeah,
because the effect of the pandemic is different for every industry, right?
Yeah.
And every region. Again, even for an airline, there's areas where, how do they manage their loyalty program different than the broad kind of on-demand base, right? There's different aspects of it in terms of, extending the points program longer, right? Giving new perks back in, right? So
right.
There's a lot of different things that are put to play there.
Terrific. Travis.
Yeah, so I'd agree that that's actually something that we did as well. Is we created a new program called our EPP, Extended Partner Program, where we actually went out to our clinics. So we do telemedicine, essentially. And so the pandemic, fortunately for us, has been fantastic as far as a growth perspective, being in telemedicine. But a lot of our smaller clinics went to hire more nurses and get more staffing early on to quickly run out of money and say, oh my God, we've got to furlough everybody. And there wasn't as much demand from coming into the clinics anymore. So you had these doctors who were still overworked, less staff. So as part of our extended partner program, we reached out and said, hey, look, what can we do to help you out? And we have a few of our own nurses right now that also help get kind of on board our clinics. So we redirected them, brought on a few more nurses, and said, go out, reach out to these clinics and help them. And they actually helped sit down with doctors through Zoom and kind of go through their backlog and say, this would be perfect for an e-consult. Let's ship that off. This would be perfect for an e-consult. And so for us, even though the amount of I guess the amount of visitors to a clinic decreased by half, our volume was actually only decreased by 10%. So it really helped stabilize just our client base. That was the big thing we did. And I don't know if it's going to be scalable moving on to 2021 and in the future. It's put a lot of stress, I think, on our nurse team. But it's definitely helped us stabilize that client base. So I'd agree. You got to reaching out to the clients and really understanding what are your needs and how can I just backfill something to help you out, and create and keep that engagement going.
Yeah, I think that's terrific. I think at Gap we took a similar approach in that we reached out to every single client and tried to really understand, Lawrence, as you said, what's the status of their business, right? And like you, we have clients across a bunch of industries, and we have a really, really, really large client that all of their customers are airlines and hotels. Okay, so that's not a obviously great place to be right now, but they have great leadership and they were really happy to partner with us. And then we have, we're fortunate to have clients that are in the telehealth space and some other things that are doing really well right now. But so we recognized that every situation was different and we asked them what they needed. We also, like Lawrence said, hey, where are you trying to go? Right? So maybe this is a period of slowdown for you, but maybe it's the time to, how can you leverage technology to go faster, to move into new markets, to reduce your cost in some way. So we engage in those conversations. The one other thing I would just add, in addition to what you guys said, is we try to keep all of our customer facing teams recognizing that the people we're dealing with are not companies, that they're actually people, right? And those individuals, we really need to be conscious of the fact that someone in their family might have COVID, right? Or they may have a spouse that's been laid off. And so they may be under enormous amounts of stress that have nothing to do with their, having to sit 10 hours a day on a Zoom call. So we just try to balance and make sure we're asking, how are you doing, right? How are you doing? Is there anything, I just want you to know, I care about you as a person. And I think that, we've taken this time to really focus on building relationships that we think will pay dividends for a really, really long time to come. Yes. Yeah. Jean Ann says, hey, that's a continuous reminder, because in your business, Jean Ann, absolutely, you are always talking to people that are, in vulnerable populations. So Jean Ann has built and produced markets of wearable watch device to really help the elderly and those of us that, take care of the elderly kind of know what their status is. So yeah, that's a key thing, is understanding where each person is. Okay, that was great. Thank you. Okay, now let's go. We've talked about employees and we've talked about our clients. Let's move to talking about our companies. And so the next question is, which I think we all know, and the Austin Technology Council spends a lot of time focused in this area, is transformation is without a doubt accelerating across the technology landscape. And there's no going back to the way things were in 2019. That's gone, and the world has changed. So we believe 2021 is going to be maybe just as volatile than 2020. So for you guys, and Travis, we'll come back to you, what does transformation mean for your company? And how are you using this ever-changing environment to position Arista MD to really grow in 2021?
That's a great question. What does 2021 look like? I have no idea. I think a little bit about even going back to the employees segment of what's changed and what's transitioned. I've probably learned more about my employees' families over the past 5 months than I have in 5 years, which I think is something that I really need to bring in. I mean, as you grow a company, as you're a leader in a company, sometimes you're always looking to the future. You're never looking back at saying, wait, who's behind me? Who am I carrying along with me? How do I get there? How do I entertain them and bring them? And so that's been a big change from my perspective of really staying engaged with the employees throughout 2021. As far as our growth plans and moving into where we're going, we're having strategy meetings right now. In fact, one tomorrow morning again. And really for us in the telehealth space, we kind of, 5 years ago, we're like, okay, well, here's the big bang, here's where we're going to be. So we've kind of now we're there, and we're really just more or less staying the course of what we've already tried to implement for the past 4 years, 5 years. And I think the growth is now coming to us in the fact that the market is demanding much more telehealth. So we're just getting ready. We hired, we raised the Series B, which was excellent during the pandemic. And we've hired 11 new sales reps.
Wow. So, you told me that the other day. I couldn't believe it. It's like, wow.
Yeah. So it's, so I think the focus right now is not necessarily on technology. The technology we've been building for 5 years, it's stable, it can scale. Now it's really about the growth in the market and getting the sales in the door. So that's our big motivation. I actually talked to sales reps as well. They're struggling with just no face-to-face, no travel. So we have a much larger budget right now that's sitting on the sidelines to cushion the fact that we're not traveling, we're not spending that kind of money. And they're struggling to reinvent themselves as far as just keeping people engaged on Zoom meetings. I was speaking to our chief growth officer, and she said she starts off with trivia and then ends with trivia and provides a face mask with the Wrist MD logo on it if you win trivia. So I think it's going to be much more interesting on how the sales representatives change how they sell.
Yeah, terrific. All right, Lawrence.
Sure. So I'll kind of take this one in two different kind of aspects. One is for, where we are today, right? Never has the quote, the only constant is change, been more applicable, right? But, when I think about our work, right? One of the things that we did last quarter was basically said, let's assume, to your point, Joyce, that we're not going to be able to travel, right? Our teams work largely a professional services consulting group, so we're in front of our clients pretty regularly. But with the travel restrictions and just the campuses closing down at our enterprise customers, like nobody's going anywhere, right? So, what we reestablished is all of those workshops, all of those in-person meetings, all of those, in-person kind of deep dive conversations that we would normally have. We had to find a way and transition that to how do you do that virtually, right? Because you can't just say, let's just take an 8-hour meeting and move that to Zoom. You actually have to functionally operate that meeting differently, spread it out over time. You've got to plan and coordinate. We even had for some of the longer, more kind of, heavier kind of mental sessions in terms of really trying to keep the full team engaged remotely. We sent out little care packages ahead of time. That had coffee in a mug and things like that. So there's ways that you can leverage the reduction in the travel budget to try to engage customers in different ways. So I think adapting again to the new world of things in how we work, and again thinking on both sides of that, right? While we might have gone to our clients to visit them before, everybody's in the same boat, so to speak, as to being on a Zoom call, sitting in front of a camera, at home. So how do we, as much as we can, immerse them into a similar kind of collective environment? And so little things like the shared coffee and biscuits in the morning was one of those ideas. When it comes to the people side of it, right? So, 2021, what we've kind of signaled to our team is let's plan now so that we have a great 2021, right? The benefit of where we are in the evolution through the pandemic is we kind of know what we're dealing with, right? One is a lot of chaos and a lot of change. But also when it comes to the teams, a real recognition that one of the HR folks in my group raised a really good phrase, which is we might all be in the same ocean, but we're all in different boats, right? So, and I think that's really true because as I mentioned, in terms of understanding our associates and our employees and our customers and what they're going through, it's important to note that it's very different trying to be at home and when you've got kids under the age of 10, right? Versus college age kids or elderly parents that you're caring for, right? So all those different scenarios present different variations for how an associate or an employee or a customer needs to work. And so being a little forgiving for that process. But, really encouraging folks to build their schedule around what's going to give them the best work-life balance. And then as a leader, being accommodating for that adaptability is really important because everybody's going through a different type of reality. And so really, again, planning for that going into 2021, we should just assume that that's going to be the case, right? And until something changes, because even if travel does open up, it's not going to be back to the way it was, right? It's still going to be very selective. It's still only going to be, instead of 10 people going to a meeting in the Axiom case of things, it would be 1 or 2, right? So the adaptability is going to need to be something that will persist through 2021 and beyond for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Something you said, Lawrence, made me think of one of my favorite Peter Drucker quotes, which says the greatest danger today is not the turbulence itself, but to act with yesterday's logic. And I'm like,
absolutely.
If 2020 has taught me anything, it's like, wow, we need to think a lot more about crazy things happening and how are we going to be kind of prepare ourselves for them. So just back on this notion of really thriving. So one of the things that we did, like many companies, right at the beginning, is we said we need to cut expenses everywhere. So we did, right? We cut expenses everywhere. The executive team all took pay cuts. Obviously there was no travel. That was an easy one to save. We cut marketing budgets. We cut discretionary spend. We cut everywhere so that we'd have this pile of cash to figure out how to thrive. Right? That we weren't just saving it so we'd have it in a bank somewhere. What we said was, we are now going to go place some bets and we're going to take some risks and let's figure out how to accelerate our transformation services. So we are growing the sales team, we're growing the marketing budget, but we needed to kind of reset ourselves so that we could go be more aggressive in some areas. And one of the, I've done a lot of reading about companies that do thrive in a period of crisis. And what I've read is they make decisions faster, right? So they decide to reallocate talent or to place capital bets in a different way, but they do that like 4 times faster than the average company. Lawrence will be very happy to know they use data. So the most successful companies use data to back their decisions and, make that, and most companies that do that say that their earnings are much higher than those that are not, using analytics to drive their decision-making process. And then, one other one is just that they are bold, right? So being a, kind of shrinking violet and just waiting for the pandemic to be over is not going to be a way that your company's going to survive this thing, right? You've got to say, hey, we're going to kind of boldly go into the future that we believe in. We're going to be smart. We're going to place some bets, but you got to go. And so that's, I think, one of the things that we've done. And right now, our leadership team across all of GAP, all of the directors and vice presidents are engaged in a scenario planning exercise where we have taken 4 different scenarios for next year and beyond that have wildly different things happening, right? The pandemic lasts in a really strong way throughout next year. The economy craters, the economy recovers, governments, change out in various countries. China becomes the world leader. We have all these different scenarios, and I have no idea if any of them or all of them some piece of them are gonna happen, but we are trying to build more muscle to be ready for the unexpected. So that when it happens, right, we go to our file cabinet and we pull out this file and go, oh, that's playbook, 1, 2, 3. Let's see what we said we needed to invest in and what changes we needed to make for that one. So that's one thing that I kind of encourage all companies to think about, of which we had never thought about going into 2020. Could there be something like a pandemic? Nope. Never even crossed our minds, right? We were like, here's our sales plan. here's our delivery plan, go. So I think that this has helped us be prepared not only for unexpected things, but to really use more strategic thinking muscle to make sure that our growth plans are, can be achieved. And how about you, Travis? Have you guys kind of done any different kind of strategic planning initiatives as you look to next year?
I mean, there's definitely on the sales side, that's a huge thing. As far as the technology side, in our clinic side, we're kind of staying the course. We've got, we've built this templated model to get out to clinics, and we just got to get out to more clinics. So I don't think there's enough data that we have yet to really figure out, okay, we totally should shift here or go after this new market. We're still focused on the small, federally qualified health systems. And then we're also a little bit, we just launched a integration with the University of Colorado Health System. So we're involved with larger health systems to get access to their specialists. So that was a whole technology feat we just accomplished. Took us about 2 years, but we're integrated now with hospital systems so that we can leverage their specialists and have them actually answer questions by physicians in rural areas. So we're marching along.
Yeah, that's great. And thank you for doing that. I mean, that's one of those things I just think that's important in terms of how we make our communities better. Your company will certainly be very successful, but giving, more access to people in rural communities, to specialists and providers that they do not have today, that's just better. That's just better for everyone. And Lawrence, how about you? Any new markets or types of customers you guys are focused on for 2021?
Not so much on the customer market side because we are already pretty broad. But the interesting thing is, and just coming back to kind of your comment about scenario planning, is I think it's just as important when you're thinking about what you're going to go do next to also take stock of what you want to stop doing. Right? Mm-hmm. Because to have the room and the space to be able to do something new or to invest in a new area, it's got to come from somewhere, right? And layering in, like I was saying about what your employees and associates are working with, they've got to make room in their own lives for, all the other things that are going on in their home life, right? So we made a concerted effort to basically say, what can we choose to stop doing to free up more time for either innovation, for training for the future, or for, again, just giving people a little bit of breathing space, right? So that they can adapt to schedules that work for them. So that was a really important part that we took into account as well, is explicitly saying we are no longer going to work on these 5 things so that we have more room for other things.
Yeah, that's brilliant and so important. Okay, so I have one last question for Travis and Lawrence. So if anyone else on the call, if you guys have questions for them, type them in to the chat and we'll answer them. And while that's happening, let me kind of speak to Lawrence, something you just said, but Travis, kind of start with you. This idea for 2021 and beyond, I think really is about innovation. And both you guys are really in very innovative companies and doing lots of new things. So Travis, what do you do with your team to make sure innovation is one of the kind of key things happening?
So I guess just personally, I'm involved with a roundtable of CTOs here in San Diego. So it's really good to get access to what everyone else is doing in the market and what is the newest technology. Now, I can't say never, but I love to, of course, as a technologist, jump into the latest technology, sometime a little too premature. And I think slowing down and saying, okay, is this really a use case for the technology? Should we apply this? So being innovative, technology-wise, there's plenty out there you can use. I think innovation also comes from the product team and what they're seeing out in the market. The strategy sessions we're doing right now, it's kind of that wild idea of, okay, what's going to cost us the most or be the hardest to achieve, what's going to be the easiest to achieve, and what's going to give us our biggest bang for the buck. And we're looking right now at creating a personal kind of chat forum for physicians so that they can come on and answer or ask small questions and then figure out, okay, is that a marketplace we can get going? So I think it goes back to the, can you innovate small and try things? It's basically, we have our platform working now. We've got our solid business model, but now what are some small things we can do in 2021 that we can test and try and say, hey, did this actually gain any momentum? And so we've got 4, I think, innovative ideas, including we were starting to go down the route of looking at how to use or utilize Alexa and,
cool.
And actually do telemedicine through Alexa, which I think people are looking at, but it's not our core business model. So right now, there's definitely the focus on maintaining the core and then small stuff that we can innovate on and try and fail or succeed. We'll see how it goes.
Great. And Lawrence, how do you ensure that your team really has an innovative spirit?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And it's a tricky one given that Axiom's a 50-year-old company with a lot of legacy and a lot of moving parts across our large enterprise. But one of the things that's been really apparent to me as I look at across my team is that they like to build stuff, they like to tinker. Mm-hmm. And so the best thing I can do is kind of set them free in that area, but we needed to have some guardrails. So we created this program that was kind of like, building off of the back of, the hackathons that are out there and these, fast, rapid dev types of processes. And we built this program called Innovation Initiatives, which is a team-led, right? So the leaders don't get to pick the topics. The team comes up with the ideas, they submit them, and then we narrow that field down, and then we let them self-organize. Right? We let the teams define who's going to run point, who's going to lead it, who's going to participate, and who's going to be effectively a bystander that just wants to observe. And so then we focus in on 1 or 2 of those ideas. And so that's been a really, I think, freeing way to allow that innovation and that idea flow to happen more organically because, again, the leadership isn't forcing a process down. We're letting the teams define what they work on, how they work on it, how often they want to meet. And that's paid off because what's happened is while we have many things that we're working on, when COVID started to happen, our team, because they're data analysts, really started to look in. We all saw all those curves, right? We all saw the trending curves in terms of infection rate. And we all became experts in epidemiology very quickly, right? But what happened is they started to recognize, there's all this data out there. Let's start to check out these different initiatives. And what that led to is an effort inside of Axiom that has changed the way we actually work with data in newer, fresher ways and challenge some of the old status quo processes to look at fast returning data, at a very, very small scale so that we can go county by county, almost zip level and household by household to see how does pandemic affect a given brand, a given customer, a different level of decisioning, just using the data that's out there, right? Yeah. And so being able to adapt to it, being able to entertain new forms of data, we started doing this inside of Google Cloud, like all different aspects of innovation came together because they had a problem to solve. And so the best thing we could do as a leadership team is just give them the runway to do that. And what that's turned into is now a commercial model that can come out of. Right? It's a layer of service that we can add on top of everything that we're doing today that provides significant value for our customers because they don't have to go out there and source and farm through all that data and do the analysis themselves, but they can get a view of what their customers look like now, given all those other impacts locally, regionally, right? Because, how a given county talks about face masks as an example changes the way people would behave, right?
Right.
And so those are all aspects that we've worked into the mix, and so that innovation has led to commercial opportunities, which is proving value back to our customers and clients as well in a win-win scenario.
Yeah, so. That's terrific. And again, allowing for innovation has created new products and new revenue for your company. So that's a fantastic thing.
Lawrence, I've got a question for you guys really quickly. Lawrence, you and I talked about the 2020 is the year of never say what you'll never do. I remember you sharing with me the story about how you said you would never buy fresh produce online, and now you are totally totally in line with buying it from Trader Joe's or from Amazon or whatever. And what hit me there was it was a never say what you'll never do. Not only have you done it, but it'll now be part of the permanent way that you live life. And so my question for both you and Travis, there's pivoting and then there's pivoting, right? And so I guess for both of you, is there something at Axiom and Arista ND that you could say, we never thought we would have done this? It would have been a complete 180 in our paradigm that you're now doing.
Working from home.
Yeah, I've been to your offices, right? You were all in there together all the time.
We closed our round literally as COVID started. So it helped give us a little bump there. And we were excited. We moved into a new 15,000 square foot Class A, brand new office space overlooking downtown. It's empty. It's been empty for the last 6 months. And constant surveys go out to the team saying, hey, do you feel comfortable coming back? I think there's a little bit of angst from the executive team to get people back in the office, but the employees, everybody's, for the most part, happy working at home. So I think that's been a huge kind of shift, 180 of do we expire the lease and allow everyone to continue working from home? And we haven't, to date, we haven't really seen any productivity decreases. So it's working, in my opinion.
Lawrence?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I remember we were talking about this early on, and the interesting thing is that for us, I don't know that there's a kind of a big, wholesale shift in terms of something that kind of took us by surprise. But what has happened is it's actually driven for the better a lot of reasons to change, right? Because like you said, there's a kind of adapting and temporarily waiting this out and saying, we're going to change some things, but they're kind of, for the most part, temporary. And then realizing that, the landscape is just different, right? So we talked about the fact that when there's a lack of availability of a particular product, say toilet paper, you're going to take whatever's available. Well, that chance that now you're going to brand shift and try something new that you would have never tried before changes the landscape for all the toilet paper companies, right? Because Charmin no longer becomes your brand of choice because you've tried something else and you're like, this one's actually not that bad and it's cheaper, right? So I think that decisioning on the whole is the frame of mind that comes to me, right? Which is change that we might have been slow to adapt on, or we might have said, the market's not leading us in direction, so we're not going to go there. I think we feel more of a reason that we have to make choices that put us in a more adaptable place, because anything we would have relied on in 2020 or 2019, you can't count on anymore, right? You have to kind of fight and earn your right to win going forward. And I think that's probably my biggest takeaway from everything that we've been talking about.
Yeah, that's great. Any other questions from anybody else you guys want to ask these guys?
Yeah, I'm Mike, CEO of Thorodyne. Hi, Joyce.
Hi, Mike. Good to see you again.
It's been a while.
It has.
Yeah, we took Thorad, that monstrous thermal optical radar system, and we miniaturized it to detect crude oil theft, which is a $3 billion loss. And nice. They've gone nuts out in Midland about it and everything. And so we've got some new prototypes on the way, and we branched out. I was raised in Mexico City for high school, so I'm bilingual. And we've got some teams in Mexico who are going to build a prototype. So now it's putting things together overseas. And I noticed that some of the people have operations in Costa Rica, Latin America, and all. And it's really great to talk to fellow entrepreneurs who have operations in foreign countries and understand the difficulties that can actually take place as a result. But luckily, Mexico also has a huge problem in oil theft because the Pemex is so corrupt, it's not even funny. So actually, some of the companies we're dealing with also have access to the market in Mexico for marketing our system. So we're trying to integrate manufacturing with access into the market, so they can actually sell the device via their contacts in Mexico, and alter them according to what the specific threats are there versus the way that they steal it here in Midland. And it's right out of the old days. It used to be a horse and buggy with barrels on the back. Now they're tank trucks holding 110 barrels of oil, and that's 10 grand a pop.
Right.
I interviewed this guy in Houston who bought 4 trucks, and in 4 years straight, he stole 30 grand worth of oil a night, and it's $48,500,000 tax free, and it was so easy it wasn't even funny. So we patented everything we designed, and so we're just we're all excited. I'm glad I tuned in today, because to see the smiles on y'all's faces and realizing that, boy, oh boy, you know, even though these headaches pop up, the overall feeling is that, yep, success is there. And if there's a glitch, we have each other to turn to and go, hey, have you seen this before? So I'm so glad that I got on this today, and it's so good to see you guys. And you too, Joyce. You got the good old smile going all the time.
Thank you, Mike, and great to catch up with you. And Amber, just before I turn this back over to you, I really want to thank you guys for kind of joining us on this call and on this journey today. So Travis and Lawrence, thank you so much. It's always great to have conversations with you guys. I always learn a ton, and I'm sure the other people on the call did as well. So thank you for being with us. And again, Amber, thanks to the ATC. In closing from my part, let me teach you the phrase that we use internally in GAP to close all communications that are related to 2020 and COVID and just in general. And that is vamos juntos. So vamos juntos means we go together. And that's the way we're all going to get to a place where we all can thrive. So vamos juntos.
Thank you, Joyce.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Travis and Lawrence, as well, for being part of this. And I see Elena and Skip and Daryl all on here from GAP. And thank you for working on the back end to help us put this together. This has just been one of my favorite programs we've done in the last couple of months. We've done some really fantastic ones, but hearing the positivity, hearing the solutions around how to get past some of the areas stuck. Joyce, your comments about putting together an employee group that supports each other, and that's just inspiring, because we're all literally in this together. There is no one who has not been affected by COVID and by everything else going on in our country and globally right now. One of the things that we always ask, because we do miss seeing your faces in person, is that when you do go out, make sure you wear your masks, make sure you wash your hands. I'm just as guilty of touching my face 97 times in a day as everybody else is. So let's just be as careful as we possibly can. Let's do the social distancing that the city and county are asking us to do, so that we can get back together and see each other in person. We look forward to seeing you all. We hope you take care, and please reach out anytime that our team can be of assistance to you. And if you'd like to get a hold of Joyce and her team at GAP, but don't have their contact information, please reach out to us at info@austintechnologycouncil.org. Again, that's info@austintechnologycouncil.org, and we will get you in contact with them. Thank you again, Joyce. It's so good to see you. I cannot wait to see you and your team in person, and everybody else and their teams in person again very soon. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.